Hi, I'm Gavin. Today we're going to talk about the Leica R4, which is this thing here. Okay, so Leica, the big red beast. Leica decided to Leica's history is really weird. They were the king, they created 35mm format, they dominated with their rangefinders for years. But post-war, the world began to change. SLRs became the sort of go-to camera, and then in the 60s and the 70s, they really did. SLRs exploded because interchangeable lenses were more portable, they were cheaper, and the rangefinder sort of not fell out of fashion, but became a less profitable item. Contact stopped making their Zeiss icons and things like that. So Leica became later on, had to get into this SLR market. So they did so with the Leica Flex, which was a couple of cameras they created themselves, and they were very good cameras, and with a new lens system on the front called the R-mount. Now, unfortunately, much like Contact had discovered or Zeiss had discovered, they really were behind the game with the electronics. And obviously the place at the time to go to deal with electronics is Japan. So Leica decided to do a cooperative partnership with Minolta. Now, at that point, Leica were hemorrhaging money. They weren't in a great place. So in many ways, Minolta sort of, I don't know, I'd say they've been upsetting the entire Leica world, sort of rescued them by doing this cooperative agreement whereby they would share technologies and develop SLR cameras together. And part of this agreement was sort of like they went away and they worked together on a camera. And that first camera from that partnership was basically the Leica R3. And this was a very, very similar camera to the XE, which Minolta did. So they were making sort of two very similar cameras at the same time. Obviously, the R3 is more Minolta-y, if that makes sense, than it is Leica. They're very similar to look at with the same functions. But then it's really weird. The R4 is a sort of divergent point where they were making the same chassis together, but Leica was adding different metering systems, different mirror boxes, different things to the camera. And that gave us the R4. And the R4, at the same time, then Minolta released another camera called the XD. It was the XD. They were the first cameras that had full program modes. So you had program mode, you had aperture priority, you had shutter priority, all those amazing features on those cameras. I think the XD came before the Leica R. Anyway, so they folded all this into a Leica chassis designed by Leica with Leica metering system, a Coppola shutter, electronic shutter, and created the R4. It was a hugely successful camera for Leica. I think it's one of the highest selling cameras they ever had. And it did incredibly well. It was massively expensive when it first came out. To give you an idea of cost, the R4 was selling for, I think in the 80s, for $900. And the Leica M4P was selling for $800. So these were like hugely expensive cameras for Leica. So they're hugely expensive cameras when they came out, and they developed this whole new lens of these R-mount lenses. And to give you a clue, at $948, which was an R4 body cost back then, if you adjusted it for inflation today, I've written it down, it's $2,863. So a hugely expensive camera, and that carried on. They made all the R cameras were massively expensive in the marketplace with other SLRs, and potentially one of the reasons they sort of died out. They made them up till the 7, which was the Minolta Leica sort of conglomeration. Then Leica took the whole thing back and made the R8 and R9, which are completely Leica cameras. But yeah, so they introduced them at an enormous price point, and then doing what all camera manufacturers do, but which is very new for Leica because they never made a cut down consumer rangefinder. They introduced a secondary model, which was, in the case of the R4, it was the R4S, I believe, simplified. And then when they did the R5, they did the R5E, they did the RE, which is like a cut down version of the main model, which you see this all the time today with cameras, whereby they produce a high end one, then a hobbled version. Anyway, I mean, they were fantastic cameras, the R cameras. They're really, really nicely built. They're really beautiful cameras, and it's fascinating to see that a Leica M4P today probably goes for like $1,500, but you can pick up an R for, I think mine was £1,500. The initial R line was beset with electronic problems. They were assembled in Portugal. The design was German, and the electronics were supposed to be Japan. But I read this somewhere on one of the Leica forums. I don't know how true it is, but it makes a lot of sense to me. The failed electronic components were imported from England, and if you have anything to do with English vintage cars during that 80s period, you'll know how shocking our electronics quality was. I don't know how true that is. I read it in a Leica forum, so there you go. But yeah, I remember my father was trying to work out why his indicator wasn't working on his Leyland car. So yeah, I feel that's a truthful thing. So assembled in Portugal. At the end of the production line, and production run, the 1600s and above serial numbers, they pulled the entire thing back to Germany. They obviously, and when the German ones don't have any problems with electronics, and if you find one today and it's still working, then I'd imagine that it's been repaired or it's not susceptible to the faults. But yeah, so really great cameras. I mean, I've got this one. I didn't invest in the whole Leica thing. I went down the Carl Zeiss Olympus route with my lenses. So the beautiful thing is you can buy the Tamron adapter lenses with an R mount adapter. There's two types, just be careful. There's one for the Leica Flex, the earlier camera, and this one for the modern R cameras. And then you can shoot these cameras, and they're fantastic things. They feel like proper cameras. Well, they just feel great. They're really, really nice cameras to shoot. Also, they created an auto winder. I'll try and put it on here, which is gigantic, which sort of completely makes it into a monstrous camera. Hang on, let's get the bottom off. So there's a plate on the bottom you have to undo. And then the auto winder sits, if I can get it to go on there, sits on the bottom. Be quite careful because it's got to connect into some lugs, if I can get it to go. Yeah, I tried this morning. It's really hard to get it in. Once it's in, it's in. There we go. Get it in there. There's a gigantic screw on the bottom which connects it to the body. And I didn't know, I haven't loaded this up because it takes about like 8 batteries or something. Get that in there. There it is. It's on. Right, okay, so now we've got an auto winder and we've got a grip on the side here. You hand through and you can shoot it there. There's also another button at the bottom to shoot it. That makes it into a monstrous camera. I wouldn't take mine around like this. Let me unscrew it. Oh, blimey. That's heavy. And then we put the bottom back on again. Nice cover plate. I'll put this on the table in a second. We'll just go through it. And one of the things with these cameras, the Leicas, the presentation is superb. So here's the box that came with this one. Here's my Leica box. Beautiful case comes with it. Inside, get it open. As soon as I'm going to get it open, yes, you've got the whole sort of Leica presentation thing going on. This is definitely a German one because the manual's in German. Though the box actually here says it's from Portugal, so I've got a bit of a mix and match with it. And also, I changed out. They've got 4 removable focus screens. Mine came with ground glass, which I hate, so I switched it out for focus screen 3, which is split prism. So there you go. Wonderful presentation. They feel like they're worth the money, don't they? Anyway, so I'll put it on the table. I'll go through it, and then I'll come back. Okay, so here we go. Here's a top-down view of the Leica R4. I mean, pretty standard camera layout. We've got our rewind over here. Now, over in this sort of control area here, there's a couple of buttons. Now, depending which one you press, at the top one here is for is for exposure compensation. So press that down, and then there's a lever over here. You can move around to get your exposure compensation. I don't know if you can see that. Take that off. Now this button here is also battery check, but it also allows you now to adjust the ISO of the camera. You've got ISO and DIN on the top there. So that's that control area. Flash on the top here. Over this side, we've got the big control dial. Now, I sort of mentioned before about the nightmare of trying to adjust shutter speed because of the way that it's intertwined with the cocking handles. Leica did something really clever. They made the cocking handle, don't know if I can get that in focus. They made the cocking handle, that way? Yeah, they made the cocking handle really thin. So literally, there's no problem getting to this. It's totally usable. And it's a very, very thin cocking handle. Take the front off. And so around the shutter controls, you've also got this little push button at the front. If you turn this, it changes all the modes on the camera. So you've got your, where do we start with? We've got T, which is shutter priority. You've got P, which is program mode. You've got A, which is aperture priority. You've got A, which is aperture priority, but it's selective metering. So that's basically like spot metering, aperture mode. Then you've got manual. So you've got two different types of metering as well as all the different modes of operation, which is really nice. Really nice smooth movement over here. I have to say, well, these things have got great action. You press this thing, it's got terrible shutter lag, but it's like, it's a really nice shutter sound. There you go. Okay, on the front of the camera, turn that up, turn it around that way. There's probably people like turning in there in horror that I've got a Tamron adaptile on here as opposed to a Leica lens. Anyway, that's a really nice depth of field preview button there. That's a really great position for it. And then around here, there'll be something to do probably with a remote release. There it is. Or a flash. I don't know. I never paid attention to those bits. The bottom of the camera is quite interesting. It takes normal SR44s, but it comes with this really cool little plate that sits across the bottom. Take that one. SR44s, rewind, and this is where the auto winder goes in and connects electrically, and that's the screwing point. So you put this over the top, nice and neat. The Leica away. There we are. That's a fantastic camera. They're really cheap. I highly recommend you get these. Don't save up for the lenses or whatever, but the adapters you can shoot. This is a great lens. I'll talk about the adapters, but this is one of my favourites. It's 24 to 48. It's an amazing piece of glass and works so well on this camera. Anyway, that's the Leica R4. Can't think of anything else to say about it. There we go. Okay, so that was the Leica R4. They are available, as I said at the beginning of the video. There was electronics problems with them, but if they're working now, they're probably working now. Some people can repair them. There's a couple of guys out there that can repair them. They're lovely cameras, and the fact that it's up to you. You buy the body, you can shoot the Tamron adapters and have a ball. Or you can invest in the R-glass, which is expensive because all the video types have got the R-glass to work to put them on their video cameras. But no, the whole R range is lovely. You'll understand that when you pick it up. They make these for great SLR cameras. It put them back in the game. I mean, one of the funny last things I'll talk about with Minolta's relationship with Leica is basically Leica actually had full patents for autofocus. But I can't remember which one of the hierarchy of Leica said this, but apparently Leica owners know how to focus their cameras, so they don't need autofocus. So they sold all patents to Minolta for autofocus. I mean, German camera companies don't seem to make the smartest business moves, do they? Contact had developed a full in-house, in-camera autofocus system, but just decided not to do it because of their lenses. And now you've got Leica, who have the patents for autofocus, sell it to a Japanese company, who later went on to make the Minolta 7000, which was one of the biggest selling cameras of all time because it was a full in-body autofocus camera. So I mean, I don't know why either Contact or Leica went down those roads, because I mean, everything's autofocus now. And I don't think they never produced an autofocus R camera. They do all their electronics cameras now, but I mean, Leica, it's a great brand, but it just makes some really bad decisions. I think they had real problems getting into the digital world until some guy came along and saved them. I think they're beginning to have a few problems at the moment because the world's going over to like mobile phones as photography. But yeah, beset with trouble. But they've been around for 100 years, and you have to give it to them. They gave us 35mm photography, and you can't knock that, really, can you? Anyway, thanks for watching.